What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name is Stephen Wright, joined as always, Mr. William Monroe. How you doing, Will?
Will, you're Steve. I'm Will, huh? I'm doing well, as you can
off
tell.
To a good start. Yeah,
yeah, exciting. Then we got baseball back here. We're recording on April 7th. Sixers are doing well. Flyers are not doing well. So overall, doing good, but
the Flyers, man.
Yeah, that's rough.
I don't know if you've been watching that, but that's been terrible.
Yeah, I think I stopped watching every game maybe a week or two ago because it just started to get unbearable, and I'll just kind of check the box scores. But yeah, man, it's just tough breaks. It seems like they're in games, and a couple games they got blown out, but they've been in games. They just can't pull them out.
We were the worst team in the league. I think it was 06, and I watched every game. And there's times where I'm not in the mood. I'm like, I can't. It's just so hard to watch.
Well, that one, I think it's different when you're a bad team and you're the worst team in the league versus when you're a good team and you're a really bad team. This team on paper is good and is expected to be good, and they're playing bad. Whereas 06, were they expected to do anything?
Yes, but that was the second year coming out of the lockout, and I think we got exposed for having a lot of people in the old era.
Yeah. So this one, that'll do it.
Yeah, and I've seen headlines where the Flyers are just bad enough, and that seems about right. They're not terrible; they're just bad enough to miss the playoffs and be in the middle of the draft round. So,
yep. Alas, but this is not a Flyers podcast. I'm sure you could make a 2-hour Flyers podcast if needed, but this is a fantasy football podcast.
It is, yeah. And today we got 2 rookie mock drafts. We're going to do a 1 QB and a Superflex. We're going to do 3 rounds of each of them. We're going to start with the 1 QB rookie mock. I'll be drafting out of 4. We'll be drafting out of 10. But before we jump into that, we had some movement going on in the trade world. My 49ers moved up to the 3rd pick. Did that surprise you, Will?
Yeah, a little bit. I thought someone would move up, and they moved from 12, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's striking distance, right? The Eagles did that a few years ago for Carson Wentz. I think they went from 14 to 6 or 7, then all the way up to 2. So, when you're close enough, you can move up and mortgage future a bit. What was it? 2 additional first-round picks plus 12?
I believe... Oh, man, what was it? I think we give up, next year's first, and then there might be a first swap the year after that or something.
Mm-hmm. First or second, first for third, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
They're taking a page out of our book with the pick swaps.
Yeah, we are. It's an interesting move. Do you have any strong opinions one way or another as to what they're going to do?
I mean, if I'm them, I probably would take Fields, imagining that Lawrence goes first, Wilson goes second. But I know you mentioned we've heard a little bit of chatter from someone in one of our leagues, and I've heard some rumors that they could go Lance. I've even heard someone say, that Shanahan really likes Mac Jones and he'd go Mac Jones at 3. So I don't really know what to make of it. I think Fields is, easily in that top 3. I think Lance is kind of in a tier of his own 4, and Mac Jones, maybe is in that tier, maybe is a little below. I think you stand pat and take either Wilson, Lawrence, or Fields, whoever's there. Do you have a preference of who you'd like to see your team draft?
I mean, I'd really like Zach Wilson. Just for that.
You'd really like Trevor Lawrence too, huh?
Well, yeah, obviously. It's just that ain't gonna happen. But
no.
Yeah, I would really like Zach Wilson for that Mahomes upside.
Yeah.
And I do like him. I worry about him going to the Jets, and I just don't have confidence in the Jets that they'll destroy that man.
No more Gase though, so hopefully new regime. We'll see.
Hopefully. Yeah, I mean, you can go back. How far do you have to go back to find a decent quarterback for the Jets, though? Geno had a couple years. Favre was there for a year, and then you're starting to get back to the Pennington era, which is early 2000s. We're talking 20 years ago.
Chad Henne.
Yeah, Henne. I mean, Fitz was there.
Fitz bounced there. Yeah, they've had a lot of the traveling quarterbacks.
Yeah, so I don't trust them, but Wilson would be nice. I'm sure they take Wilson, and then I think it's going to be Fields. I don't believe in the Lance. There's been a lot of Mac Jones hype, and as we were talking before the show, the 49ers don't leak anything. So all this is just speculation. Take it with a grain of salt. But I think if you needed Mac Jones, you didn't need to jump up to 3 to get him. I felt you could jump somewhere else. You go with like the 6, try to get the Eagles 6 or something like that. And that's where they were, right? 6 for the Eagles?
Yeah. You're getting at,
Yeah, I mean,
this is mounted to be pretty much a 3-team trade, really.
basically, yeah. But I mean, move up to that pick instead. Even then, I mean, you could probably
You
hold
might
tight
have
to
been able to
12.
get him at 12, but I guess it's one of
Yeah.
those things. If you like a guy, go make sure you can get him. And maybe they had some insight that someone else wanted him, in that 5, 6, 7 range, or was going to trade up. So they wanted to make sure they got their guy. But who knows? Like you said, it's all speculation until we get the draft day. 'Cause the Niners are pretty good at keeping their mouth shut about that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of unknowns, right? Like, will Atlanta draft a quarterback? No one really knows. Some think they will, some think they won't. I mean, so there are some question marks in there. But yeah, I think it's Fields at the end of the day. It makes too much sense.
Yeah, it does make the most sense. And we'll see. I just got looks like a tweet that says here that the Niners currently have 4 quarterbacks on their roster plus the number 3 pick. So they got, looks like Jimmy G, Josh Rosen, Josh Johnson, and then who we just talked about before the podcast, former Eagles quarterback Nate Sudfeld just signed there today. So 4 quarterbacks. You'd imagine, either Rosen or Johnson, if not both of them, are going to be gone. You're not going to sign Sudfeld to cut him, right?
Yeah, I'd imagine both Rosen and Johnson will be cut. Johnson definitely.
Yeah.
He was bought in as an emergency guy.
Camp body.
He had worked with Shanahan before in Washington, maybe. But
yeah.
And Rosen, obviously, man, what a bust. But, as a third string guy, that's fine. But yeah, you're not going to sign Sudfeld and keep him, I don't think. So, whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, maybe they're prepping for a Jimmy G trade.
Yeah, right.
He's
maybe
gone.
You want to load up on a couple of veteran guys that maybe you can start the year with if you do take a guy that is not as pro ready.
Yeah, maybe you end up with Fields, Sudfeld, and Rosen, and that's your group. You cut Josh, you trade Jimmy G.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? There's been quite a few quarterback trades, though. As you referenced there, it's kind of a 3-way trade. The Niners move up to number 3. Dolphins move back to 12, and then immediately trade that 12th pick and another first to the Eagles to move up to 6. Eagles back to 12, so that takes the Eagles out of the running, likely for a quarterback. And I think it sets the Dolphins up really nicely to get probably the top skill player, if not, maybe the second best skill player at 6. Especially if we get 4 quarterbacks going in the top 4 or 5.
Yeah, they've done quite well. The Dolphins have over the past couple of years with their trading and their picks. It's something else. I congratulate them. I hope all the picks work out and they can turn that franchise around. It's going in the right direction if Tua can pull it around.
I know you've been a little skeptical of Tua, but he's going to have all the weapons that he can handle at his disposal. Like they have the 20th pick, another early first or early second round pick, I believe. So they're in good shape to probably draft, I'd imagine, a skill player there at 6. And they could, if they really want to strike at the running back position, they could take him at 20, or they could take him in the early, in the early second round. So they should really be able to build that team around Tua. And if he's the guy, you've got it. If not, maybe you're a destination for a veteran quarterback, with a really good young core, kind of like the Bucs did.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, bringing this up, it's a good time to mention, our next episode is going to be our draft predictions. We'll talk about, where Fields are going to land, what San Francisco is going to do, what will Atlanta do. We'll talk about those Eagles, Eagles and the Dolphins and everyone else and see where we're projecting people to go. We did it last year, had some fun. I think I had a really good call last year that not a lot of people had, and I forget. It was
one that you didn't get
Taylor.
The name right or the pick right, but you got the team right.
I think it was Jonathan Taylor to the Colts.
Yeah,
and people on Twitter like, "Is anyone actually predict this?" I was like, "Hey, yeah,
that's me."
yeah, congratulate me.
Right.
So yeah, we'll be doing that. That'll be fun. That'll be our next episode.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy how close we are. I feel like the draft always seems so far away until the week of, but just pulled the calendar up and. First round is 4 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah.
3 weeks from tomorrow. Man. 3 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah, it won't be
long.
The
29th.
And then before we jump in, we had Sam Darnold finally get moved to the Panthers. What do you think about that?
It's interesting. I feel like at first glance, it didn't seem like a ton, right? I mean, obviously just a 6th round pick this year, but a 2nd and a 4th next year. So, it seems like a decent haul. But I saw someone, make note that, if it's a guy that you are going to be moving on from anyway, right? You're drafting a quarterback at 2. you're going to get, you're just looking to get anything for him because you're not going to roster him and first round pick. And then someone also noted, obviously he hasn't been as bad as Rosen, but the Cardinals got nothing for Rosen pretty much. So, or what, maybe a fourth round pick or something. So they're at least getting some value at the second plus. Did you have a big revelation here?
Yeah, I mean, the second's really good.
Yeah.
I thought that was, even if it's next year, that's a good return. Like, I wouldn't have paid more than a third for him.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, a second's a lot. I mean, it's a great move for the Jets. From a Panthers perspective, it worries me because, like, obviously you're not drafting a quarterback now. You've got I wouldn't think so. But now you got Darnold. If he doesn't work out, then you're another year behind. And you're drafting somebody next year.
They took them, and I believe they picked up his option. So Darnold will be under contract for at least 2 years with Carolina.
Yeah, so you're really tying your wagon to this guy that hasn't really performed and like could really set back your franchise. Because if you stick with him for 2 years and he doesn't work out for 2 years, CMC's window starts closing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a shame to say for running backs, but that's just how it is. He's a pass catcher, so maybe, he can carve out a little bit more there, but, his window will start closing and he won't be in his prime anymore. Then you're going to be stuck rebuilding again with a new quarterback. Like, that's worrisome.
It's interesting. I mean, I think this is probably one of the best options they had, unless they could make like a Watson trade, right? That's going to be expensive.
For sure, yeah. Yep.
You got to imagine Darnold's probably, one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks if he was in this draft, right? They didn't have to trade their first round pick, so they could still go get him another skill player if they want at 8 or 9. And I did see that he's actually only 23 years old. He came into the league very young.
Very young.
Darnold is younger than somebody. I think he's younger than Najee Harris. Like, he's younger than some of the guys getting drafted this year. He's already. So,
throwing out just another name, assuming the price was the same, would you rather trade for Darnold or Jimmy G?
If I'm the Panthers,
yeah,
I probably, as a fan, would want Darnold. I just, like the upside more. Obviously, we mentioned, I think, before the podcast here, Jets are a dumpster fire of a franchise, unfortunately. Respect to all the Jets fans out there that have stuck with them. As an Eagles fan, I know how difficult it is, but a lot of that is Adam Gase in recent years, so I'm sure most Jets fans are thrilled that he's gone. They just haven't been able to be consistently good for so long, and a lot of, like, you look at all these players who have left Adam Gase and have thrived. So I think that I would probably rather go with the younger upside guy. I think what you're getting with Jimmy G, right? You're getting a probably a better version of Teddy Bridgewater, right? A very good quarterback, a guy that's gonna, doesn't probably have the ton of upside, even though he's got he's been to 2 Super Bowls now, technically, with the Patriots backup. But I just probably not super interested in him. If I guess, like, you look at it, at the window, but like outside of that, right? If you're drafting a rookie, Darnold's probably going to be, on par with that in the next 2 years, right? Maybe if you get, somehow can get Lawrence, it's different. But any of the other guys, I can't see them being dramatically better than Darnold, in these next 2 years, getting you to compete, right, with that CMC window. So who knows? I'm sure one of the quarterbacks will end up, really sticking out, like your Herbert last year. But I like the Darnold trade. I think he's got more weapons than he's ever had, a better coaching staff than he's ever had, and he's still a young quarterback. So I think it was a good trade for them. If it works out, you're probably gonna have to sign him to a solid deal, but only 2 years of production. If he does, ball out for 2 years, you might be able to get him on a relatively decent contract too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so they got their quarterbacks sorted out. Are you ready to go ahead and jump into this mock?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other big news trade-wise here, so I think it's time to move over and we'll get into our rookies here.
Yeah, let's talk some rookies. Before we do, as always, give us a follow at Trust Your Board on Twitter. Tag us in all your polls, and we will retweet and give some commentary there.
Awesome.
Let's go ahead and get the ball rolling here. As I said, I'm drafting out of the 4. Willow's drafting out of the 10. Sleeper does do some funky things with quarterbacks with these rookie mocks, so we might have to manually plug some people in here. But we will play that by ear a little bit later. So we have started the draft. Harris did go with the 101, ETN went with the 102, and Jamar Chase with the 103. I don't think that's too surprising, right, Will?
No, that makes sense. I mean, I think, in a vacuum, you're probably going to take the running backs for the first three. I don't have any problem taking one of these elite receivers earlier, right? Your Chase, your Smith, Waddle, but I think just the value of running back, you're probably going to see most drafts. Those three go either top three or like this, 3 out of the 4, 3 out of 5. But I think it's a pretty easy tier of Harris by himself, and then just below them, ETN, just below him, ETN and Javonte Williams. Then, pretty big drop off for the running backs. And because of that scarcity, I think that's why running backs go in this first 3 picks in most rookie mocks you're going to see.
Yeah, for sure. I tend to agree with you. Williams is going to be the guy for me. I do give a pause for Devonta Smith being here. Obviously, if it's like a tight end premium, I'm looking at Kyle Pitts, but very specialized there. So I think I will go ahead and lock in Williams here to get a running back. It's really hard to pass up on running backs at the end of the day, right? Like you said, he probably should have went to 103. That's also, sleeper and their quarterback stuff aside, it is hard to do rookie mocks because it's very team specific and what your need is. Maybe not so much up here because everyone needs a running back, so you're going to grab ETN, early on or something, right? Like, you're not going to pass up on Najee Harris because you have, 5 starting caliber running backs. You're just going to add another to your grouping, but maybe more where you're drafting there at the 110, it gets a little bit more situational. But for me, it's not situational. I will grab the running back here that I think most people have as their consensus 3 and lock in Mr. Williams, and we'll see what gets to you here, Will. So he's been locked in. Devonta Smith went right after mine. There's Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields going back-to-back at 6 and 7. Interesting. Finally, there's Kyle Pitts over there at the 108, and then Waddle right before your pick. What do you think of the quarterbacks going 7-8?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Fields is probably a little early, especially not knowing the landing spot. I'm guessing Lawrence goes somewhere between 6 and 8 or 9 in most drafts, and then whichever quarterback is either the Niners quarterback or like the best positioned guy goes, closer to the either 12 or early second round. So I don't know that, you see both of them go there, but maybe Fields goes to the Niners and, both of them are really highly sought after. But this is definitely an interesting spot here at 10. It's interesting. One of the teams in my other Dynasty League owns like most of the first round here. And he has picks, I believe it's like 5 or 4 through like 10. He has like all but like one pick. Yeah. So we've already like chalked up that he's going to go with, Trevor Lawrence and, Kyle Pitts in the middle there. I think he's got 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then 10. Wow. Yeah. So like we imagine he'll go Lawrence and Pitts there and then just go, best available wide receiver, running back across the rest of the way. I think he's got 2 as well. So it'll be interesting there. But yeah, in this situation, probably going to look at just kind of best available guys. Pitts would be the only Pitts or Lawrence definitely would take them there. Other than that, I'm probably looking at a receiver. Kenneth Gainwell's interesting if he goes to the right spot. You got Michael Carter at running back, Chuba Hubbard. But I mean, unless Gainwell goes to really good position, I don't think that he jumps up. So I'm looking at wide receiver. Top 2 here for me would be Rashad Bateman or Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore's a little on the smaller side, but he's really explosive. I believe he sat out this year as well, whereas Bateman's a bigger guy. He's, more of your typical X receiver. I typically like the bigger guys there. It's probably going to be dependent on the situation. And at a point, in the last year or two, these guys were, talked about with your Waddle, with your Chase as, possibly the wide receiver 1. Devonta Smith really stepped up this year and kind of took that. So I think it'll probably be either those 2. At this point, as I mentioned, it's probably landing spot dependent. And, I'm okay to kind of bounce back and forth between the 2. So we'll go Rashad Bateman here on this one. In another draft I might take, might end up taking Rondale Moore, but either one I think would be a great get here, with Pitts and Fields going a little earlier. So we'll go Shaw Bateman after him, the aforementioned Rondell Moore, Brevin Jordan, tight end at 12. Back to the front of the draft here, Pat Fryermuth, another tight end from Penn State at 2-1. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 2-2. Kenneth Gainwell there at 2-3. Would have been a nice get for you. And it's your pick there at 2-4.
Yeah, Gainwell was really the one that I wanted there. That's a shame. So I'm debating between three people, and this is where it really becomes a like a team dependent move, right? Because the three people I am debating between is a quarterback, Zach Wilson, tons of upside. You're going to be looking, as long as he goes to the Jets, probably around here. Unless you always have those guys in your league that are like super hype on someone.
Yeah.
So if he goes in the back of the first, and surprise, surprise. But Zach Wilson here would be interesting. From a running back standpoint, Michael Carter would be cool. He's not going to be like your big featured back, I don't think. You're between the tackles kind of a guy, but a fantastic pass catcher. And that kind of role could have a lot of longevity in the league, as we've seen. Your Sproles, like people who are around forever, right? James White's around forever, compared to a Todd Gurley that was more like a flash in the pan after a few years and he's gone. So he could last a little bit longer. And while that's not like the most exciting pick in the world, when you start throwing darts, when you get in the middle of the second round and your odds of hitting are going down, something like that's pretty nice. And then Tylan Wallace being the wide receiver option here, obviously, great at going up and getting the 50-50 ball. And that's always a good thing to have. Quarterbacks like relying on a person like that. So, if I had a need at the wide receiver position, I'd probably go ahead and grab Wallace here. You could say the same thing about every position here. If I had a need at quarterback, I'd take my shot on Zach Wilson. If I didn't have any needs there, I would probably go ahead and just grab Michael Carter just to add another running back. I think I will go ahead and I'll stick with Michael Carter to take another running back here and just grab another shot. Wide receivers are always easier to come by, and I'll just take a dart throw at somebody in the third round and kind of see what happens. Obviously, landing spot come real drafts is going to have a large impact on a lot of these players at this point. But for now, we're going to go ahead and lock in Carter there.
Got both of the North Carolina running backs. They played on the same team last year.
Yeah, they did. That is true. Hubbard finally went. Then Tylan Wallace there at the 206. We have Tony at 207, Marshall, and Trey Sermon right before your pick. Any surprises in that group?
Not really. I mean, Wallace, Tony, and Marshall were all three guys I was looking at. Sermon and Chuba are running backs that are quality, and they'll likely be running back dependent on where they go as well. So I think that all makes sense. Kind of was hoping for like one of those receivers to fall. At this point, there's not too many running backs. I'd be super interested in Kylan Hill's interesting out of Mississippi State, but most of these guys, you got to hope they go to just a place with a ton of opportunity. So I'd probably stay at the wide receiver position, although Zach Wilson is interesting here. If you are a QB needy team, late second round is a great spot to get a quarterback, even if you just want to get a younger guy to potentially have to build around and, give yourself some depth. Wilson, is probably the guy I'd be looking at here outside of the other positions. Kylan Hill, Dwayne Eskridge, wide receiver out of Western Michigan. I've heard a lot of hype on him. I haven't seen too much tape, but believe that he's been in a good spot. You got Seth Williams, Sage Surratt, Damani and Terry, De'Ami Brown, Ramondre Stevens, the running back if you really need a running back. Another guy a little further down, Jameer Jefferson out of Oregon State. He's going to get a lot of love, and I think higher up on rankings than this has him. But for argument's sake here, we're going to go with Zach Wilson just to get the quarterback. At least in one of my leagues here, quarterback is a very important position, and a lot of teams jump on that early on and actually have more value than a standard 1 QB usually does. So we'll go Zach Wilson here at 210. After him, Kylan Hill, Ramondre Steven, Dwayne Eskridge, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones. So I hope you weren't banking on getting a quarterback because the top 5 are off the board here before you're up.
Yeah, I was gonna think about it. I really didn't think that either of them were going to go, which I find interesting. I mean, what do you think? Do you think both of them should be going early third round? I mean, obviously, to a degree, it's depending on where they land, but
yeah,
as of now, what do you think?
It's one of the better quarterback drafts, deep depth wise that we've had in a while. So I would imagine most, at least 4, maybe 5 of these guys go in a 5-round draft. Mac Jones is going to be the kind of borderline guy, and depends where he goes. But in a 4-round draft, you're definitely going to have all 5 of these guys go. In a 3-round draft, maybe. Maybe not this early. I'd imagine maybe one of them goes here. Like maybe Fields goes early second. Somebody goes late second. Then you get like an early third and a late third. But you're going to have runs that, maybe my Wilson pick forced a couple guys to, jump on a quarterback early. So it's interesting.
It is. I'm kind of surprised to see De'Ami Brown here. Are you?
Yes and no. I've heard, he's got a lot of high ratings here, but from what I understand, he's more of like a one-trick pony. And he is like a speed guy, but maybe one of those guys that's going to help his NFL team more than his fantasy team. Once again, I haven't watched really any tape, so I only go off of what I've heard and some of the analysts that I've heard talking about him. So from what I hear, at least dynasty-wise, he's someone that, some people say you may want to stay away from, and be one of those guys that's really going to help, as I mentioned, his fantasy or his actual NFL team over your fantasy team.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've seen as well. I've seen him named as like the best value potentially in the draft because he's going later and he has the ability to be an impact receiver.
Yeah, definitely.
But like you said, he's done a lot of the kind of like just the deep route kind of stuff. Like he doesn't have a great route tree, but a lot of people think he's capable of it. So do you take that shot? I mean, maybe you end up with like a Henry Ruggs kind of situation. I don't really like drafting those kind of people, but in the 3rd round, that's not a bad shot to take. So like, do I take an upside shot on somebody that can maybe turn into something plus have deep burner potential? Or, like Sage is there, like you said, he's a little bit more like a possession guy. That's probably a safer route. That's not a bad option, I think. But if I'm standing in the 3rd round, I don't know if I want to play it safe with any shots. Like I'm just going to take an upside shot, and to me, that's De'Ami Brown. If you have a lot of top end wide receivers and you need kind of like a safe guy, like we've always talked about adding like a Beasley or, someone that's going to get you, a handful of targets every game and you can plug them in there on a bye week or something. Then, Sage isn't a bad option, but De'Ami Brown, I think, is the guy I'm going to go with and just take an upside shot and see what happens. I haven't drafted any wide receivers, so that's definitely where I'm looking. But it's purely about upside. So we'll lock him in. Another quarterback going off the board, Jamie Newman. Oh wow, and there's another too. Boy, Sleeper likes his quarterbacks.
Yeah, they really reversed course.
They did, yeah. It's backloaded here, but Jamar Jefferson, Patterson, Elijah Mitchell, and then Kyle Trask is the other one going off at 309 right before your pick.
Yeah, a couple more quarterbacks go. You don't imagine they go in a regular draft here this early, but Jamar Jefferson was one that I don't imagine would fall to a 310, but would have been easily taking him. Obviously, as we mentioned, all the running backs after the first 3 are going to be a little more dart throws and team dependent, but he's a guy that I think should probably go in the 2nd round. And someone I considered at 210. So definitely was interesting. I've heard good things about Jared Patterson out of Buffalo. Once again, haven't seen too much on him. So at this point, I'm really just looking at wide receivers. One guy that is interesting is Ole Miss wide receiver Elijah Moore. He, as well as then we got Tamari and Terry are guys that out of Florida State that probably the highest here for me. And Elijah Moore, I've seen a lot of people talking about him in the middle of the 2nd round, so I don't imagine he's available here. But he's a guy that I'll lock in, and not having a team we're drafting for. I'm just going best player available. So your quarterbacks and your wide receivers typically are the longest lasting positions. So we're going to take those and just kind of build around that. After him goes another tight end, Hunter Long and Sage Surratt to round out our draft.
Awesome. So that's going to take care of the one quarterback rookie mock we're going to do. Will, do you have any closing thoughts before we move on to the Superflex? Anything jump out and surprise you here?
Nothing really that we didn't talk about. Once again, it's, those top 3 running backs in the early first, and then you're going to have probably a few reached for in the late first because of the scarcity of the position, but you're going to have most of those guys, Gainwell, Carter, Hubbard, your Sermon, your Jefferson, Hill, maybe in Stevenson. I'd see a lot of them probably going in the second round because teams need running back and they're just looking to kind of gobble up anyone they can. But this is a very deep receiver draft. There's still a few guys, Tamari and Terry, Amari Rogers, Seth Williams, that weren't drafted here in the first 3 rounds that I imagine, should be. So you're going to have a lot of receivers available. If you have an early pick and you can get one of those 3 running backs, lock one in because you'll have a good chance at getting, a quality wide receiver a little later.
Yeah, and I'll just add real quick, it's going to be an interesting year for the tight end position. I mean, obviously Kyle Pitts is going to go early. He's a beast. He's a next level. But, your Jordans, your Hunter Longs, where are they going to go? And it's going to be, I think it's going to vary a lot draft to draft. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the tight end position this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brevin Jordan and Pat Fryermuth are both really good tight end prospects. And if Kyle Pitts wasn't in this draft, people would be fighting over them for the end of the first round. Long-term tight end dynasty assets, but with Pitts just being potentially a generational talent, they get a little looked over.
Yeah, and this is the kind of deal where you got to look at your league and look where everyone has their picks and where their need is, because, if somebody has a need at tight end, Kyle Pitts goes earlier, they jump up for Jordan and that pushes Trevor Lawrence down one more spot. That kind of stuff happens all the time. So got to practice a little bit, but how about we move along to the Superflex? How's that sound?
Yeah, let's pop over there, get the Superflex going, reversing it up. I'll be in the 2 position, and Steve will be in the 8 position for this draft.
Yeah, no start quarterbacks for me, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to get one of the 5 if they.
Yeah, we'll take a shot at like Mac Jones. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, in Superflex, I imagine you're going to have 5 going in the first round. Maybe more, but those 5 should be going in the first round, which is what makes the depth of a Superflex draft that much nicer.
Yep, and we're probably gonna have to plug in some quarterbacks here because they outside the first 2, Fields and Lawrence, their ADPs are pretty rough, even though we got Superflex. But okay, so we went ahead and got it started. Surprise, surprise! Trevor Lawrence is first off the board.
Yeah, so this is where it comes down to who is available and the position. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is gone, so everybody else is available. Where the guy lands. Landing spot is going to be huge for the 2nd and 3rd pick. In a vacuum, I'd probably go Fields. But if, let's say, you have Wilson going to the Jets and Fields going to San Fran, right? I think that makes it easy. Fields. If you have someone like Mac Jones or even Trey Lance going to San Francisco, comes a little more difficult because I do like Wilson a lot, and he's going to have the opportunity to start right away, so you're going to get production right away. And then, where does Fields go? Does he go to Atlanta and sit for a year? Does someone else trade up for him? So I'll take Fields just, to get the talent here. But if he's not in a great position, I, have no problem taking Wilson second because we kind of know where he's going to be. So we'll go Fields with the 2nd pick. After him, Najee.
So I'm thinking, the 103, I went ahead and paused it.
Yeah.
They went with Najee Harris. Do you think that should be an auto Zach Wilson?
I say the top 4 should be Najee and Wilson. It's going to be team dependent here, right? Maybe you have 3 good quarterbacks and you just want to get that running back. I have no problem with Harris. I think Lawrence obviously has to go 1, and 2 should be one of the better quarterbacks, but I don't know that you necessarily, and likely 3 is a quarterback as well. We could see it just like the NFL draft 1, 2, 3, 4 for your fantasy teams as well. But yeah, I mean, I'd say likely it's Wilson, but I don't have a problem going with Harris there because I think he's going to be a stud.
So then I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to plug in Zach Wilson at the 4 spot.
Perfect.
And then what I'll do, maybe we got to plug in another quarterback here. Lance or Mac Jones. Do you think we should plug in one before it gets to me?
Yeah, I think
Considering it's super flex, right?
see what 5 does, and then you can give 6 a quarterback if they don't take one.
Yeah, they went with ETN. Jabbar Chase went with the 106. We'll let that stick. How about 107? We'll go with who do you prefer, Lance or Mac Jones here?
Probably put Lance in. Obviously it's going to be landing spot dependent, but Lance probably in a vacuum has the more upside, and the guy is what I imagine most teams are going to be looking for. So you put Lance there, and then it's to you here.
Okay, yeah, it is to me, which is an interesting spot to be in. I find myself in the same spot I was in the last mock. Yeah, basically, because Najee Harris, ETN, and Jabbar Chase are gone. So I'm sitting with Devontae Smith and Williams again. So I am in a similar spot. The real question comes in on Mac Jones now. Do I go ahead and take Mac Jones because he's a quarterback, or do I somewhat start executing on the same strategy I just did? At the 108 position, I'm back. I made the playoffs. I'm sitting, as long as I didn't trade the pick, I made the playoffs. So I'm probably sitting pretty good at quarterback. So that's going to weigh in on the decision. My quarterbacks were, say, like, I don't know, Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady, and then, whatever, a competent third, quarterback, then, I'd probably lean on Mac Jones a little bit because, Brady's getting a little bit older. But if I'm sitting there with two younger guys, like I don't know how you would have finished a 108, but if you had like a Mahomes and a Russell Wilson and then a third string, maybe I go ahead and I'll take my running back or my wide receiver. For now, since we don't have the luxury of having rosters, really, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to play the Superflex up. I'm just going to grab Mac Jones here and grab a quarterback.
Yeah, makes sense. There'll probably be more that go.
Okay, I don't have this set.
Oh no.
Yeah, oh no, indeed, it's not set properly. That's fine. So we got Bateman that wet. That's a shame. That's a tough loss for you.
Yeah, luckily in this case, I would get the other guy I was looking at, and Rondell Moore probably. I guess you could look to tight end, but I'd probably still be looking for best available guy with just a lot of talent on the board. So, Bateman goes 1 there. I'd probably lock in Rondell Moore.
Yeah, and that's an interesting call out with the tight ends. We see the difference between this mock and the previous one. Kyle Pitts falling all the way back to the last pick of the first round.
Yeah, very interesting.
That would have been real nice if it got to you.
Yeah, oh my God, that would have been easily locking it in.
But yeah, I'll set them manually here. So we had Bateman go off at the 201. You are on the clock. You mentioned Moore. Is that what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, we'll lock in Moore here. I think he's probably the that kind of next tier receiver break. You got your Moore. I think it's Moore, Bateman, probably outside of that top 3 tier. I think you can probably argue with Elijah Moore as well. Jalen Waddle, Tyler Wallace, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Terrace Marshall. They're all kind of in that next tier as well. But yeah, be thrilled to get Rondell Moore or Bateman with the 202 after already locking in Fields.
So at this point, I don't want to go ahead and just lock in. We're mostly going to go down ADP, but again, the quarterbacks are a bit messed up.
Yeah.
We got the big 5 off the board. So we're still looking at like Davis Mills, Trask, Newman. Do you think any of them go in the second round, or between me and your pick here in a Superflex?
I think you probably go Gainwell or one of the tight ends over them. Maybe that 5 or 6 pick goes with one of them, because you're really just taking a shot on them being a starter. Now, if you're even a remotely decent starter in the NFL, you're very valuable in Dynasty Superflex. But I think it just comes down to where they are. So yeah, I'd say lock in your Gainwell, your Jordan, maybe Freiermuth and a quarterback after that.
Yeah, so maybe like 207.
Yeah, 207 makes sense.
Now, is there a particular quarterback that you have? You're kind of throwing a dart, when you're getting it later. But is there anybody in particular out of like the Mills, Trask, Newman group that you particularly like? Or
I'd say the only other person that's not drafted right now I'm not big on Newman. I'd say Trask would be the only other one that I
Yeah,
would want to draft.
Trask's
Now,
kind of my guy
obviously, if
too.
anybody goes to a decent situation, you're going to take them. But Trask is the
Yeah.
only other one that I think would be remotely interesting.
That's going to be our jump then. We're going to plug in Trask right there. We'll add another tight end here. Oh, boy. So that leaves me with some interesting options here. This, again, a very familiar kind of look between Michael Carter and Tylan Wallace. So I guess I will maybe do the opposite. I mean, you also have Chuba there that, has fallen given his prior season.
Mm-hmm.
If he ends up at a really good spot, I could see him quickly rising back up. But I think this stuff, because I don't want to bail, and I don't want. If I don't draft a running back here, then I might as well not draft a running back.
Yeah.
Because I mean, once you're in the third round, right? Like, why?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Like I said, it's going to be, each round is like a half a round better with all the quarterbacks going. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. So I think I will go ahead and I'll take an upside shot on Chuba here. It's probably a little bit early. It sucks passing up on, Tylan Wallace or Tony, but I don't want to leave without a running back. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in here. And, right, we're doing all this manually. And,
a little longer.
We'll see what happens here. So we will continue on down. Maybe we'll right here after me, we could go ahead and plug in another quarterback here.
Yeah, I'd say by the end of the first round or second round, someone will probably grab another quarterback. So I think that makes sense.
We'll plug in Newman there, your boy. That's how I will now call him.
My Cephas.
Yes, your Cephas. We'll put in Michael Carter. We will get Tony in there, and then I believe I should be able to start this draft back up.
Yeah, I'll look at that. Just the second round.
Trey Sermon goes off the board, and you are back on the clock, my friend.
All right. So this gives me an opportunity to get a guy that I was interested in the last draft in Terrace Marshall. Kylan Hill is also interesting as a running back prospect. If it's a running back needy team out of Mississippi State, exciting player. But I think Terrace Marshall just has too much talent, and I do think he's going to fall because of how overshadowed he was. 2 years ago, he was the wide receiver 3 on a championship team behind Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. And then last year, he had a chance to showcase it, but LSU was bad, right? So people are going to assume, Jefferson gets drafted, Chase sits out, and, obviously the rest of the team gets drafted the year before too. But, people are going to think, maybe he's not that good if he can't lead this LSU team. But they had a lot more problems, right, than just the receiving core. So I think he's a very good player, and I think he is going to be, someone you probably get. I don't really know where to gauge him in this, but somewhere in the early to the middle of the second round, you're going to be able to get a quality player in Terrace Marshall. So we'll go Terrace Marshall here. We'll have Fields, Marshall, and Moore as my 3 picks. After him, your boy De'Ami Brown, who will now be dubbed your boy, Kylan Hill, Jared Rice, tight end. Oh, don't know that name. Ramondre Stevenson and Dwayne Eskridge.
I kind of regret doing what I just did. I'm looking at Jamar Jefferson here at the running back position, which would have allowed me to take like Tylan Wallace or Tony earlier, and I could have ended up with one of the all 3 positions here. But he's an interesting running back to me, where I think maybe not on the level of CEH, but kind of like CEH last year, where like prior to the draft, he was everyone's like 5th or 6th running back generally, right? Like you had JT was typically at the top, Swift was up there, Akers was up there, Dobbins was always high up there. So then it was probably CEH, right? So he would have been 5th.
Mm-hmm. That sounds.
But he gets drafted. Yeah, I think so. And then he gets drafted to the Chiefs. He skyrockets to number 1. I don't see that in the cards for Jefferson, but I could see a kind of similar situation where, he's kind of the back end of everyone's list, or not back end, but, further down on everyone's list when you're looking at the other ones, and Najee Harris's of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if he gets drafted to a good situation, I could see him catapult up. So, obviously things are going to change between now and when the draft actually happens. But for now, I'll take that shot. Another shot on a running back here. Plenty of other good wide receivers here. Sage, like I mentioned before, Seth Wilson. So there's some options there, but whatever. Running back at the end of the day is a little bit more replaceable. So I will go ahead. I will lock him in there. The rest of the draft pans out to Jared Patterson, Sage, Riley Ferguson, and Javian Hawkins. Probably going to be some more quarterbacks in there. Maybe in a real draft, given it's a super flex like a Davis Mills, Bond, maybe, depending on where he gets picked up. I saw some rumors that maybe the 49ers go and they try to grab like a Mond late and tag him up and grab like two rookies, kind of like an RG3 Kirk Cousins situation.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't turn out that way for you though.
Yeah, well, they hit on Cousins. That was just, the Washington franchise being trashed.
Yeah.
In fact, could you imagine Cousins right now on that team with Terry McLaurin and that defense?
That would actually be now.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good. Sucks to be them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe a couple other quarterbacks sprinkled in there, but you got your big ones out there early. So the change from 1 QB to Superflex, anything jump out to you here? Surprises?
No, nothing major. I mean, you're going to have those quarterbacks go early and probably often, but I just don't know enough about the deeper quarterbacks to say whether any of them, who should go in that second round outside of Trask, I think is the only other guy that interests me out of the top 5. But yeah, I mean, the Superflex drafts are always interesting because you see so much talent fall into the, second and, even the end of the second, early third round. You're going to have a lot of talent that you are more than happy to gobble up. Usually those top 20 players, contain 1 to 2 quarterbacks, but in the Superflex, it's pushing some of those top 20 players, into the third round.
Yeah, and you got to think when you're talking about like the Jamie Newsoms of the world, you quickly forget about these people if they don't turn in anything. Last year, people were drafting Jake Fromm, Jacob Eason, Jordan Love, in all different areas for Love. But, Fromm and Eason were going in the back of Superflex leagues, and, they're not going to turn in anything, really. I don't even remember. Where did Fromm go? Did he go to Buffalo? I don't even recall.
I want to say he went to Buffalo, yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah, now he's probably third string behind Trubisky. Maybe Trubisky's third string. I don't know the other quarterbacks on the roster. Jacob Eason had a legit shot. Everyone knew Rivers was nearing the end. But, unless he shows a lot of progress and Wentz really just does suck, he's probably gone. And then the only other late one that I remember was Jalen Hurts, I think, was going kind of late. You have seemingly kind of hit there. At least he's starting. So
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, you got to take shots on these guys in Superflex, and a lot of them don't pan out, but every once in a while, something hits.
Yeah, about wraps it up. Solid rookie draft here to get us ready for the upcoming rookie or NFL draft and rookie draft season starting likely in early May. So good luck, everyone, and we'll be talking to you in a few weeks here, getting prepped up for the actual NFL draft.
Yeah, doing our draft predictions episode. So yeah, tune in then. Until then, folks, trust your board.